Rashi Yatha Parakamam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parishana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shivashikam Vidamscha Om Adhyana Timarandasya Yanachana Shalakaya Chakshuram Milidam Yena Tasma Shigurave Namah Gurva Bistam Supurkam Varganarasisha Sambhushitam Chintya Chintya Samasta Veda Nibbanam Shirupa Patanagam Govinamidam Ujjalam Bharatanam Bhaktyan Vidam Sundaram Vande Vishwagurun Shah Divyat Bhagavad Premnoi Vijapradam Devam Divyatanam Suchandavanam Balarka Chelashitam Chandrananda Puram Sarikavaranam Vairagya Vidyampurim Sri Siddhanta Nidhim Subhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Varam Vanditam Shubharam Marika Sharanam Yashishvara Sridharam Vanshakopatarubyasya Kripasindubhyavacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahavaranya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Goratabhishe Namah. So we're continuing with our reading of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the hidden treasure of the sweet absolute, translation and commentary by Srila Bhaktivedanta, the translations and commentary by Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev-Goswami Maharaj. Translation by Guru Maharaj, and this is chapter 18, Moksha-yoga, the path of liberation. And we're on verse number 67. Idam te nata paskaya navaktaya kadachana nachashush rushave vacham nachamam yo yasu yati. Idam te nata paskaya navaktaya kadachana nachashushrushave vacham nachamam yo yasu yati. You should never disclose this hidden treasure to one devoid of self-sacrifice, to the non-devotee, to the faithless, to one who is averse to my service, or to one who is resentful toward me. You should never disclose this hidden treasure to one devoid of self-sacrifice, to the non-devotee, to the faithless, to one who is averse to my service, or to one who is resentful towards me. So everything that we're doing is actually based on a platform of faith. Faith is necessary for any spiritual progress in life. And this verse here is similar to in the offenses of the holy name. There it says to give the holy name or preach the glories of the holy name to the faithless. And there's a little different meaning. Srila Govinda Maharaj and Guru Maharaj explained that this is especially mentioned for those who want to establish themselves as professional gurus. That they want to preach, they want to give something to people who are faithless because it's a monetary transaction. But really, we're not interested in acquiring, as Mahaprabhu says, Nadanam na janam na sundarim kavitam vajagadishaya kamai mama janmani janmanishware bhavatad bhaktira haituti tvayi. Mahaprabhu is saying, I don't want wealth, I don't want fame, I don't want followers, I don't want beautiful woman or beautiful wife. I don't want liberation. All I want in my life is your devotional service, birth after birth. So here, Krishna is saying, you should never disclose this hidden treasure to one devoid of self-sacrifice, to the non-devotee, to the faithless, to one who is averse to my service, or to one who is resentful towards me. Because why would you want to disclose the glories of the Lord to someone who will just take it in the wrong way, or present some kind of criticism or blasphemy? Only reason someone would do that is because they're interested in some fame for themselves. It's not. So Krishna is very clear here. You should never disclose this hidden treasure to one devoid of self-sacrifice, to the non-devotee, to the faithless, to one who is adverse to my service, or to one who is resentful toward me. Of course, the characteristics of the Madhyamadikari is that he worships the Lord, he befriends or makes friends with the devotees, he preaches to the innocent, and he avoids those who are openly antagonistic or those who are against the Lord and his service. And then as mentioned, that is the quality of a Madhyamadikari. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because sometimes in preaching to the innocent, for instance, we're doing program, we're preaching to the innocent, it's not unheard of for us to find persons who are mentioned here, who are non-devotees, who are not performing any kind of self-action. What?
Faithless.
Faithless, because we're preaching sometimes to the innocent we're trying to preach on a big scale. Sometimes it may include persons who are of these categories. But we're not doing that intentionally. We're canvassing sometimes groups of people. And somebody may be faithless, but we're not doing it for our own fame or fortune. We're doing this just in terms of the propagation of the holy name. So sometimes that may happen, that somebody will strongly attack us or argue with us. And I've heard Sridhar Maharaj say that whenever one tries to push devotional service or do something to further propagate Krishna consciousness, then Maya sometimes will attack. And that can come in so many ways. Maya attacks. And one way will be that the devotees are preaching and then there may be some local ordinance or something trying to combat the preaching of the devotees. It's not unheard of. So maybe also preaching on trying to preach to many people, trying to present Krishna consciousness as an appeal to many persons. Someone may attack who is faithless or who's a non-devotee. Well, we're prepared for that to a certain extent. We're prepared for that. We may not be big pundits or big scholars, but we can answer questions that people may pose to us. Because we feel that we're in the service of Gurudev and we will undertake some risk for Gurudev. We don't want to preach to these faithless persons, but as Srila Guru Maharaj said, no risk, no gain. So sometimes some risk is taken. Ya imam paramam guyam mad bhaktesh vavidhashati bhakti mai param kritva mam evais yati samshaya. Ya imam paramam guyam mad bhaktesh vavidhashati Bhakti mai param kritva mam evais yati asamshaya. One who reveals the glories of the supreme secret to my devotees will attain transcendental devotion for me and reach me without a doubt. One who reveals the glories of this supreme secret to my devotees will attain transcendental devotion for me and reach me without a doubt. So there's also an answer here given to the previous verse about not preaching to the faithless. one who reveals the glories of the supreme secret to my devotees. Well, sometimes out there, among persons who are not devotees, there may be devotees, and they're just waiting. They're waiting according to their sikriti to come forward. And sometimes by the calling of the devotees, presenting the glories of the holy name, the glories of the divine scriptures, the glories of Gurudev, and speaking those, some persons will immediately be interested to come forward. So we don't want to preach to the faithless, but here it says, one who reveals the glories of the supreme secret to my devotees will attain transcendental devotion for me and reach me without a doubt. So we are also broadcasting the glories of the Lord, hoping that the devotees will hear and become encouraged to increase. It's like that. Sometimes something calls, one can receive a personal calling just by hearing the glories of the Lord. When, oh, I've never heard something like that. And they want to hear more. Nacha tasman manusheshu kaschin me priya krittama vavita nacha me tasmad anya priyataro bhuvi. In the entire human society, there is no one who pleases me by his actions more than he who preaches the glories of the Bhagavad Gita, nor will there ever be anyone in the world dear to me than he. In the entire human society, there is no one who pleases me by his actions more than he who preaches the glories of the Bhagavad Gita, nor will there ever be anyone in the world dear to me than he. Because this Bhagavad Gita is such a beautiful scripture spoken by the Lord to his devotee, and that's why it has this name, Bhagavad Gita. It's really the song of the Lord sung to his devotee. And it is, the Bhagavad Gita contains knowledge about the Lord and his relationship with his devotee that you won't find in any other scripture. It can be read by everyone, and especially if it's heard from the Lord's devotee, then one can understand. If it's heard by someone who's not the Lord's devotee, the message of the Bhagavad Gita will not be properly transmitted. Because the Lord is speaking to his devotee, and who can present it to others is also a sincere seeker, a servant of the Lord's devotees. So, in Bhagavad Gita, it tells you information about the Lord, about the devotee, about the nature of the soul, of the different qualities of devotion. Just like one time Srila Maharaj, he gave the example. If you get into a taxi, then to get to your destination, you have to give a proper address to the driver. So the Bhagavad Gita will give you information about the proper route to get to your address. Krishna is giving that. Agyeshate cha ya imam dharmyam sambharam abhayo Jnana yagena tenaham ishta sham iti me mati Adyeshate cha ya imam dharmyam sambharam avayo Jnana yagena tenaham ishta sham iti me mati. And one who studies with devotion this holy conversation of ours will worship me by the knowledge sacrifice. This is my conclusion. And one who studies with devotion this holy conversation of ours will worship me by the knowledge sacrifice. This is my conclusion. So here it's referring, what is referred to, the knowledge sacrifices, jnana yagena tenaham. So, what is the meaning of sacrifice? The sacrifice is an offering to the Lord. Yagya Vaivishnu. That when one performs sacrifice, one, in the true sense, is worshiping the Lord. So in this case, you're sacrificing to the Lord by entering in the plane of understanding transcendental or divine knowledge. Jnana yogena. If you understand the Lord, if you sacrifice your energy and yourself to the service of the Lord by understanding this divine message between the Lord and his devotee, then you will be benefited. One who studies with devotion this holy conversation of ours will worship me by the knowledge sacrifice, jnana yogena. This is my conclusion. Okay? So, and that is why it's important to always hear Bhagavad Gita. We're hearing Bhagavad Gita. We're hearing Chaitanya Charitamrita. We're hearing the books of Guru Maharaj and Govinda Maharaj and Acharya Maharaj and like this. You saw that Acharya Maharaj has some very nice books that have been printed also. And what is the last one of those?
Upadesh.
Upadesh. Upadesh 4.
4.
Yeah, so I saw that cover and I've heard some of what he's read from it, and this looks very interesting. So now there is a PDF of that. So Srila Maharaj said, we were not encouraged to read many books. The emphasis was on service. But he says, if Gurudev tells me to read a book, to read a particular scripture, he said, then that is bhakti. Otherwise, just searching out many books that sometimes devotees are reading wrong books. You know, they're not properly presented, and they read them just out of curiosity. So, Guru Maharaj said, if one is told to read particular books, and we have been told to read the books coming from our divine masters, if one is told to read a book, then that will be bhakti. If one just reads many books on the basis of his own, that may be gyan, or it may even be karma. But one should follow what is beneficial to one's devotional service. Srila Guru Maharaj said there are certain books that if we read them, even though they may be advanced books, we're not ready for them, and they may actually stunt our devotional growth. Because they will present situations, problems, misunderstandings that will not be beneficial for us. So, Shravan anasuyascha Srinuyadapiyo nara sopi mukta subhalokan prapnuyat punyak karmanam. Simply by hearing this with an open heart, a faithful person is liberated and attains to the auspicious abodes of the virtuous souls. Simply by hearing this with an open heart, a faithful person is liberated and attains to the auspicious abodes of the virtuous souls. So what can we say about an open heart? We heard an example once given that it was said that if a person approached a music teacher, and if that person had no knowledge of playing music or had no previous musical knowledge, the fee was one fee. But if someone came who already had previous knowledge of music, then the fee was double. And then someone said, well, why will the fee be double if someone already has some previous knowledge? You would think that they could advance faster because they have previous knowledge. But the music teacher said no. If someone has no knowledge, comes for musical lessons, I can teach them. But if someone has previous knowledge, then I have to undo all the teachings that they have, and then I can teach them anew.
Properly.
Huh?
Properly.
Because sometimes one who doesn't have an open heart, one cannot benefit. Because in order to benefit from Bhagavad Gita, you have to have an open heart. You have to be able to receive this orally, to be able to hear nicely, and then let it flow into your heart. Simply by hearing this with an open heart, a faithful person is liberated and attains to the auspicious abodes of the virtuous souls. Kachir etach shutam parta tvayaika grena chetasa kachit agyana samoha pranashtas te dhananjaya kachit etach shutam parta tvayaika grena chetasa kachit agyana samoha pranashtas te dhananjaya. O Partha, have you listened to this with your undivided attention? O Dhananjaya, are you now free from the darkness of your delusion? So remember, at the we're at the end, towards the end of the Bhagavad Gita, the 18th chapter, this Moksha-yoga, when one will be liberated from all misgivings. And here, in the beginning, we remember Arjuna was under so much a cloud of delusion. He refused to fight. He was saying, I would rather live by begging, even though it was his duty to protect the Lord's true devotees. But he presented arguments why he should avoid battle. And according to modern ethics, we would say, oh, that's very good. He wants to become a pacifist. He doesn't want to engage in war. But it's interesting that would be a wrong conclusion, because we see the Bhagavad Gita is such a beautiful conversation between the Lord and his devotee. And here Krishna says, now you've listened, O Partha, now you've listened. Have you listened to this with your undivided attention? O Dhananjaya, are you now free from the darkness of your delusion? And one can see by the result, Arjuna was free from the darkness of delusion, because he now had a firm understanding of what his relationship is with Krishna. He always knew, but Krishna explained clearly for his benefit and for those who were listening, because Sanjaya was speaking to Dhritarashtra about this conversation, and in that way the conversation was being transmitted. So, O Partha, have you listened to this with your undivided attention? O Dhananjaya, are you now free from the darkness of your delusion? Arjuna vacha nashto moha smritir labda tvat prasaran maya chuta stitosmi gata sandeha karishe vachanam tava. Arjuna vacha nashto moha smritir labda tvat prasaran maya chuta stitosmi gata sandeha karishe vachanam tava. Nashto moha smritir labda tvat prasaran maya chuta stitosmi gata sandeha karishe vachanam tava. Arjuna said, O infallible one, by your grace my delusion is now gone. I can now remember who I am, my doubts are destroyed, and I am firm in my resolve. I shall follow your instructions. Arjuna said, O infallible one, by your grace my delusion is now gone. By your grace my delusion is now gone. I can now remember who I am, my doubts are destroyed, and I am firm in my resolve. I shall follow your instructions. Arjuna vacha nashto moha smritir labda tvat prasadan maya chuta stitosmi gata sandeha karishe vachanam tava. Arjuna said, O infallible one, by your grace my delusion is now gone. I can now remember who I am, my doubts are destroyed, and I am firm in my resolve. I shall follow your instructions. So, this is Krishna. Arjuna began with very many doubts, and he's heard from Krishna, and Krishna has proceeded. And in addressing Arjuna, Krishna has given answers and help to all those who are hearing this divine conversation. Now, Sanjaya Vacha Iti Aham Vasudevasya Partasya Cha Mahatmana Samvaram Imam Ashrosham Adbhutam Romaharshanam. Sanjaya Vacha Iti Aham Vasudevasya Partasya Cha Mahatmana Samvaram Imam Ashrosham Adbhutam Romaharshanam. Sanjaya said, thus I have heard this wondrous conversation of the Supreme Soul, Vasudeva, and the son of Prita, Arjuna, which arouses ecstasy in the hearts of all. Sanjaya said, thus I have heard this wondrous conversation of the Supreme Soul, Vasudeva, and the son of Prita, Arjuna, which arouses ecstasy in the hearts of all. Vyasa prasadach shrutavan imam guyam aham param yogam yogeshvarat krishnat sakshat katayata swayam. Vyasa prasadach shrutavan imam guyam aham param yogam yogeshvarat krishnat sakshat katayata swayam. By the mercy of Sri Vyasadeva, I heard this supreme secret teaching of yoga, sung directly by the Supreme Lord of Yoga, Lord Sri Krishna himself. So, Sanjaya, he is the follower of Sri Vyasadeva, and he's able to transmit this message that he's hearing by his divine powers. He's transmitting the message that's spoken by Krishna to Arjuna, although Sanjaya is not immediately present, but he's able to receive by virtue of his connection by the mercy of Sri Vyasadeva. I have heard the supreme secret teaching of yoga sung directly by the Supreme Lord of Yoga, Lord Sri Krishna himself. Rajan samsmritya samvaram imam adbhutam keshavarjunayo punyam rishyami cha muhurmuhu. O king, ever remembering this miraculous sacred conversation of Lord Sri Krishna and Arjuna, my heart thrills over and over again. O king, ever remembering this miraculous sacred conversation of Lord Sri Krishna and Arjuna, my heart thrills over and over again. So who's the king? The king is Dhritarashtra. Sanjaya is speaking to the blind king, Dhritarashtra. And Sanjaya, who is transmitting the message so that Dhritarashtra can know what is going on prior to the battle, and he's very curious what will be the outcome regarding Krishna and Arjuna and the fight with his sons. But Sanjaya himself says, by the mercy of Sri Vyasadeva, I heard the supreme secret teaching of yoga sung directly by the Supreme Lord of Yoga, Lord Sri Krishna himself. O king, ever remembering this miraculous sacred conversation of Lord Sri Krishna and Arjuna, my heart thrills over and over again. Tatscha samsmritya rupam atyadbhutam hare vishmayo me mahan rajan rishyami cha puna puna. Tatscha samsmritya rupam atyadbhutam hare vishmayo me mahan rajan rishyami cha puna puna. And remembering, O king, I marvel at that astonishing, almighty universal form of the Supreme Lord Hari, and my whole being thrills with ecstasy. And remembering, O king, I marvel at that astonishing, almighty universal form of the Supreme Lord Hari, and my whole being thrills with ecstasy. So here we hear some reference of Sanjaya to the universal form, which was very astonishing. Of course, we will consider that still related with the plane of Aishvarya Gyan knowledge of the glories and sense of being awe and reverence and majesty and like that. And that's effect has had the universal form on Sanjaya. But even more overwhelming and more incredible is the personal form of Lord Krishna. As we find him in Vrindavan, that will be very attractive to the devotees. And Yatra Yogeshvara Krishno Yatra Partho Danordara Tatra Shrir Vijayo Bhutir Drutva Nitir Matir Mama Yatra Yogeshvara Krishno Yatra Partho Danordara Tatra Shrir Vijayo Bhutir Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama Yatra Yogeshvaro Krishna Yatra Partho Danordara Tatra Shrir Vijayo Bhutir Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama. Where there is Yogeshvara Krishna and where there is Arjuna, the winner of wealth, with bow in hand, there prevails fortune, victory, prosperity, and virtue. This is my opinion. So even, we can say not even, but Sanjaya is saying this to King Dhritarashtra. Where there is Yogeshvara Krishna and where there is Arjuna, the winner of wealth with bow in hand, there prevails fortune, victory, prosperity, and virtue. This is my opinion. Iti Shri Mahabharate Shata Sahasriyam Samhitayam Vayasyam Bhishma Parvani Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Moksha-yoga Namastada Jaya Yogo Namastada Jaya. This is 18th chapter. End of chapter 18, the path of liberation, from the conversation of Sri Krishna and Arjuna in Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishad, the yoga scripture of transcendental knowledge, and Bhishma Parva of Sri Mahabharata, the holy scripture revealed by Srila Vyasadeva in 100,000 verses. This is the end of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, final chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Hariharaya Nama Krishna Jadavaya Nama Hariharaya Nama Krishna Jadavaya Nama Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Gopa Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Gopa Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinatha Maranamon Giridhari Gopinatha Maranamon Shri Chaitanya Nitya Lila Koila Prakash Anante Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan Anante Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majai Aman Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majai Aman Shri Guru Vaishnava Pada Makuriyan Shri Guru Vaishnava Pada Makuriyan Hari Nam Sankirtana Kohe Narakam Buddha Hari Nam Sankirtana Kohe Narakam Buddha Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Shishi Guru Guranga Gandharvika Giridhari Jyoki Jai Jayom Vishnupad Paramansa Paravajaka Sharyashta Tara Sadashri Shiman Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev-Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jayom Vishnupad Paramansa Paravajaka Sharyashta Tara Sadashri Shiman Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev-Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai Namachar Shila Haridas Thakur ki jai, Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasha Raghunath, Shad Goswami Prabhu ki jai, Premsi Go Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasdi Shri Gaura Bhakta Veda ki jai, Shila Jayom Vishnupad Vishwavarenya Shila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai, Jayom Vishnupad Shila Bhakti Nirmalacharya Maharaj ki jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat ki jai, Soquel Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Seva Ashram ki jai, Shri Radha Krishna Go Govardhan Shyam Radha Kunda Kalindi Yamuna Jul ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, all the assembled devotees ki jai, Sripad Bhakti Mandava Puri Maharaj ki jai, Gaur Premanande Hari.
Jai Srila Bhakti Pavan Janardan Maharaj.